Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our preview for This Is Us, Season 6, Episode 11, titled Saturday in the Park. This title, special emotional significance to me. I was in high school marching band. I'm no surprise, everybody, I'm a nerd. But now, when I was drum major and one year we did music from Chicago, I have heard Saturday in the Park, the song, at least 2 million times in my life, and it is always going to make me think of that, and this episode is probably just going to make me sad, unfortunately.
Oh boy, that promo for this episode was tough. I mean, we're going to go through all of that and much more, some predictions, theories. But before we do, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are here every single week talking about This Is Us for the whole season. And hopefully, when there's a spinoff, and hopefully, we will get some information about that at some point. I know they've denied it, but I feel like it's got to be coming.
We're not letting go. We refuse
No.
to let go. But okay, ironically, I think one of the main focuses of this episode is of a character who, we've talked about there wanting to be a spin-off of, the next generation of Pearsons, and that includes Jack Damon. But this is the smoker incident. This is bad things happening around Jack Damon, which of course leads to the divorce between Kate and Toby.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen the buildup of them getting closer and closer to the end of their marriage. Throughout the season, it was, very apparent two episodes ago with the big Kate episode that she is staying put where she is in LA after Toby's ultimatum. We saw even in the last episode, after she climbed the hill, asked for a more permanent position at her work, that she came back and was like, Toby, I can't do what you're asking. I'm not moving.
It's set the stage where, the big sort of central event of this episode is going to be Rebecca and Miguel having their anniversary party. And it's a barbecue. So, of course, anytime that you're having like a big party outside, you're going to want to use some fancy equipment. You're going to want to have some smoked meats there. It's not that hard to kind of connect the dots. But what was interesting about the promo is I think so much of what we've been talking about is about, okay, Jack injures himself somehow in a way related to the smoker, but it also kind of seems like he's just missing at one point during all of this.
Yeah, and that's sort of the thing, right? Like we've seen him in the future that he has this little scar, that he, had these sort of flashback memories of all this smoke around him and what's been going on, but we don't really see a lot of any of that in the promo. Like you said, he just goes missing, where the whole house is like frantically looking for him, and then we see him walking down the street with his walker going towards probably the park, because they have shown us on the show that Kate has been teaching him how many steps from the house to, the street, then how many steps to get to the park. So he knows how to get to the park.
Yeah, he clearly does, and this is a situation where if I'm gonna just try to paint a picture here of what could be happening, let's say they have like a part of the anniversary party that's sort of set up at the house, or maybe that's where they're preparing, and then maybe there are some people who are actually already at the park, and maybe they're having a part of it there, and maybe that's where the smoker is, and maybe this is a situation where, the smoker's there, it's doing its thing for whatever reason, somebody's not, watching it or monitoring it, or they just think that, Jack Damon is back at the house, so they wouldn't even really think, and then he gets himself sort of mixed up in this without anyone knowing or realizing what is going on.
Yeah, we don't know all the details yet. We don't know if it's a situation where one of the parents was like, oh, you got Jack? Yeah, I got him.
Yeah.
And then they don't. Or if they just think the other person did. And, the communication's very bad between Toby and Kate.
Yeah.
So it's possible that they didn't check in with each other on who is looking after him. But we also saw this scene with Rebecca and Jack where he's, I guess pretty worried that his parents are fighting a lot. And she's trying to console him, to be like, hey, you know what? Parents do fight a lot. That is something that can happen.
Yeah.
And, it should be okay. And I'm wondering if that's what's going to happen. That maybe part of the smoker incident is that they're fighting, and they're fighting in front of him. And he's like, you know what?
Yeah.
The place that makes me feel good is the park. So I'm going to go to the park. We all think that the reason that he gets that scar is from the smoker, but maybe it's actually not. Maybe it's a situation where he has the vision of the smoke, but that's just because he's there and there's smoke around and he
Yeah.
has a not that incident, but just the memory of I'm at the smoker, I'm coughing, whatever. Maybe one of my parents puts me down, they get into a fight, and then Jack is like, I need to get out of here. Like, I just had this thing that happened to me. My parents are fighting. I know where I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the park. And he ends up hurting himself at the park.
That's more than possible. I think people in general aren't the most reliable narrators of their own story. And I think, for adult Jack Damon to sort of say and characterize this incident as being about sort of strictly the smoker, that may be sort of his own internal monologue trying to find a way to explain away what happened with his parents. That sort of, it might be easier for him to sort of understand and compartmentalize that, okay, it was this thing that caused it. It was this day as opposed to this fight and this fight and that fight. And we also don't even know how much Kate and Toby are really going to be telling him about all of this stuff after the fact, because I'm pretty darn sure he's not going to remember at least like 95% of a lot of the finer details here.
No, and a lot of their fighting and differences, may have happened a little bit in private. Obviously, we had them away together without the kids for that big weekend where it all really fell apart. They know when it fell apart. He just has his own perspective, because there's probably going to be some sort of panic fight that happens, since we saw in the promo Rebecca talking about their fighting. And we also saw Kate crying and being consoled by her family. Is it because Jack has been missing? Is it because Jack has been hurt? Is it because that really is the point where they're like, we're done with this marriage? Or is it just all of it?
I think it could very well be all of it. It could even be, it's always still possible. It could even be something that we're not seeing. And maybe Jack Damon walking down the street is like the ultimate misdirect here, and they're like pulling a page from like The Bachelor or one of these other shows where they show you something in the promo and then just like point around and laugh at you later. And I wouldn't be shocked by any of this. I also wouldn't be shocked if this episode 11, kind of bleeds into episode 12, that these two are sort of like not the finale, but just sort of like an end of this present day stuff before we start to move forward in time, because we got to get to these flash forwards eventually, right?
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that the show hasn't tackled really deeply, is divorce, which is something that many people have gone through. And I think, again, the show is very much about different relationships and how different relationships start, middle, end. And this is something that I think the show, it needs to talk about, because we've had so many different aspects of relationships that we haven't had this aspect yet. So I do think that the divorce and how they handle the divorce and how they handle the kids and all that is going to come forward after this for probably a couple of episodes. I think it's an important story to tell.
Yeah, I think it's something they need to tell. I think a couple of episodes is probably, at least for me, the ideal length here, because I don't want to watch, the rest of the series be about divorce, because it's just going to get way, way too sad. But I think if they sort of tackle the aftermath of it in 11, a little bit in 12, and then maybe we get a little bit in 13, but I think we got to start speeding this up. Like, we got to start seeing, how Kate and Philip eventually sort of develop some romantic chemistry. We need to figure out what's happening for Kevin romantically in the future as well.
As well as what's going to be happening with Randall's career. I mean, he made a really big choice at the end of this last episode where he was like, I'm ready to meet with that senator. So there's a lot that's still coming up for everybody. But I think for now, we need to buckle up and get ready for what is going to be a very difficult episode, especially for all of us who were really rooting for Kate and Toby throughout this whole show.
The thing that I'm trying to cling to with all of this stuff is that I know Dan Fogelman has said probably at least like 50 times at this point that everything is going to be resolved by the end of this series, that we're going to have answers, we're going to have clarity. I've never gotten the sense that the end of This Is Us is meant to make us all dive into an ocean of despair. I think they are going to paint maybe a bittersweet light at the end of the tunnel, but I still think there's going to be a light. And I think we just have to hold on and deal with what is probably going to be a very painful next couple of weeks before we get there.
Yeah, I don't think they want this show to end really negatively. And
No.
I know that this is a show that pulls at people's heartstrings, that there's very relatable stories that go into it. There's lots of heartbreak, but there is joy in this show as well. And that's why I think, we're going to get an ending that's satisfying. And I feel like we're just a part of the satisfaction for me is just that I think they're going to give us the answers that we need, whether we like them or we don't
Yeah.
like them, or we agree or don't agree. At least they're going to give answers, and they're not going to leave it up to interpretation, like Blind Spot or something like that, where we walk away from it being like, what happened?
I'm going to make a very bold prediction here. I think some people in the comments are not going to be happy with certain decisions that are made moving forward in the series.
And that is
Yes, it's
okay.
fine.
I am fine with a show making a decision as long as they make a decision, even if I really don't like it, like the end of Game of Thrones. At least they were confident enough to pick a road, go on that road, and end at the end of the road. And I have respect for that, even if I don't like it or I don't agree.
What if at the end of the series finale, Kate shows up, the rest of everybody shows up, they all walk into Rebecca's room, and right before they do, it just fades to black immediately,
No.
and that is no. Okay, no, I will not do any more Sopranos jokes. Okay, well, we have hopefully some good stuff coming. There's going to be some sad stuff, but hit that subscribe button. We will be here with reviews, previews, all sorts of other good stuff the rest of this way. So stick around, follow us on Instagram at Matt and Jess TV, and we will see you here next time.